Okay, so are we live now?
Yes.
So can we bring the slides up, Joanna? The first slide. Good morning, everyone. This is the Higher Education Schools and Energy Communities workshop. Welcome to you all. My name is Martin Brocklehurst. I'm an Aurora partner and the chair of the Citizen Science Global Partnership. If I can have the next slide, please. In introducing the session, the objectives of today's event are to showcase successful community energy schemes that have been developed for educational establishments, to equip participants with a clear understanding of the challenges and solutions they will need to develop to be successful, to explore how community energy schemes can be successfully linked to citizen science programs designed to reduce personal carbon footprints in line with the Paris Commission targets, and to build a network of like-minded educational establishments prepared to work together to develop educational community energy schemes across Europe. Next slide, please. And the speakers we have with us today are Giulia Cerci from DG Education, Youth, Sport and Energy, Piet Holtrop from Holtrop Legal in Spain, Achille Hanaset from DG Energy within the European Community, Zhang from Aarhus University and an Aurora partner who will talk about the example from Aarhus University and Energy Community, Christophe Bartholins from Eco to Schools program, Dr. Paula Carroll from University College Dublin, Monica Bassani from the EU from DG Climate Action, and Carlos Godino from the EU Green Universities Alliance. And if I could move on now and invite Giulia to introduce the proceedings. The floor is yours, sir.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to quickly check if my voice goes through.
You're clear?
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here actually with you today and to talk about something that perhaps we can agree really affects all of us, our future. And Martin, it's a privilege to be part of your initiative. Today, you're truly a leading figure in the environmental sector. I know there is normally no place for flattery in these kind of meetings. I just wanted to say that it's really an honor. So thanks for bringing this nice crowd together, this event, and for the kind invitation. Well, you asked me to say just a few words about how education can play a role in shaping our future, so that it becomes greener, fairer, more sustainable, obviously. And of course, this is a huge topic. So I think it's just sensible to give you, just the bottom line in my short contribution here. Well, I think many of us would like to believe that education isn't just about textbooks and exams. It's about preparing people of all ages, with the knowledge, the skills, and also the mindset to live sustainably and tackle big challenges like climate change. When we talk about changing the world, we are really talking about changing minds and mindset, and that starts. I personally believe in classrooms, but also training centers and even informal learning spaces. If you allow me, I would just give out some basic information with what we are doing at the EU level, really in a telegraphic fashion, in case some of you wish to know more, so that you have some ideas where to look. So at the EU level, we do have an ongoing project that we call the European Education Area. We started this some 5 years ago. It's cutting across the entire spectrum from kindergarten to adult learning. And that has made this a top priority, putting green skills front and center. And now, with this brand new initiative, the Union of Skills initiative that you might have heard about, which the Commission launched last month, the goal is to help people to actually get the tools they need to succeed in life and to contribute to solving real problems like climate crisis. Another major step is the EU Preparedness Union strategy. So the press has been littered with that, which is all about being ready for whatever comes our way, especially the challenges that climate change can and does bring. It's called preparedness by design, and it means building resilience into everything from our schools to our energy and transport systems. And one key piece of the puzzle is the Council recommendation on learning for the green transition, which we launched together with the member states, the EU countries, 2022, and that supports countries, schools, universities, organizations in helping learners understand sustainability, not just in theory, but in real life action. And of course, as you may know, the European Commission is very actively supporting this effort, not just with funding, but with practical tools, shared resources, a strong working group focused on school sustainability. There we are exploring, as we speak, how schools can become greener, more energy efficient, and also more connected with their communities. And the great example, I know many of you is connected to that, is of course Green Comp, which is the European Sustainability Competence Framework, and it focuses on critical thinking, adaptability, understanding systems, working with nature, the kind of skills we all need in today's work and for which you Martin personally and your organization are doing a lot. So we also have the Education for Climate Coalition. This is an exciting network of over 9,000 members by now, I think. It's a space where students, teachers, education leaders can actually come together to collaborate, to share projects and work together towards a climate neutral Europe, if you like. So if you're not already part of it, I would warmly recommend you to check it out. And of course, young people are at the heart of all this. They're not just future leaders. They're leaders now, and schools can support them by leading by example, making sustainability a part of everyday life, not just classroom lessons. And this is where the whole of school approach comes in, which is part of the program description for today. It means that everyone, students, teachers, staff, families, local communities, can and do actually work together to make sustainability part of everything the school does. Whether it's integrating green topics into lessons, we're talking about the curricula, or greening school buildings, or starting community energy projects, the impact is real and it's powerful. And of course, we are not alone in this, because we have our international partners. We do a lot together with them, with UNESCO's ESD 2030, and programs like Eco Schools. They're actually helping schools across Europe and beyond become true models in sustainability. So as you will continue today's discussion, I would like to encourage you to perhaps also think about how we can use education, and especially the whole school approach, to drive the energy transition forward, and to empower schools, not just to teach about sustainability, but to live it and to lead it. So Martin, thank you. I think I stop here, and I wish you really an inspiring conversation and meaningful connections today.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for the kind words. I'm going to move straight on, if I may, and now we move to our first formal speaker, which is Piet Holtrop, and I'll ask you, Piet, if you could introduce yourself just before you start to go through your slide. Thank you, Piet.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martin, and also Julia for the introduction, which was, I believe, very helpful. so for me to connect to that in my presentation. But as Martin suggested, I will first present myself. So yeah, my name is Piet Holtrup. I was originally born in the Netherlands, but I grew up in Germany and then moved 25 years ago to Spain, and I've been since I'm in Spain a regulatory advisor on energy transition. Initially, I would explain that more like, well, we do renewable energies, but that moved on to include also energy efficiency, mobility, and of course now community projects. So it's really about transition, yeah, and that's what we do. So after that brief introduction, if as said, if I may just pick up on the words of the previous speaker, the last line here in the presentation, why does it matter? Well, for future generations. For me, it was evident when we were asked in December 21 by the UPM, the Polytechnic University of Madrid, to deliver some inputs on how to set up a local renewable energy community for the university. We got very excited about it because it was it's evident, it's clear that if you want to do energy transition, it's a transition also of mindsets, of cultures, and the way we think about energy systems. I mean, transition means that we move to change the paradigm from centralized to distributed. And of course, the Campus Sur of the UPM, where they have educating future generations of particularly PV engineers. Well, we thought it was a great idea to the community there. Then I'll move back and forth through the presentation as you will see to illustrate how this process was. So it started in December 21. We did a kickoff meeting, and then we had deliverables in March 22. We developed methods. We had another we had an itinerary with all the competent bodies in the university governance system, November 22 until January 23 and June 23. That was roughly the whole process. So what happened during that process? On the first line here, main difficulty, lack of willingness. That's the key here is, I would say, where there's a will, there's a way. But unfortunately, that works bi-directional, right? I mean, if there's a way, if there's a will not to do it, then there's a way of impeding. And if there's a will to do it, I'm pretty sure it can be done. So, which were the legal issues experienced in the development of energy communities in the universities, particularly in our example with the UPM? Well, the first question, of course, is, can the university participate? The concept of local authority. So if we just quickly visualize for ourselves, what is the definition? Oh, I have it visualized on the screen, so I can briefly read it for you. It's Article 2 of the Renewable Energy Directive. So in the section 16, it says, renewable energy community means a legal entity which, in accordance with the applicable national law, is based on an open and voluntary participation, is autonomous, that's an important point, I'll get back to that, and is effectively controlled by shareholders or members that are located in the proximity of the renewable energy projects that are owned and developed by that legal entity. It continues, the shareholders or members, which are natural persons, SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises, or local authorities, including municipalities. And then it ends with the primary purpose. So you just in the previous bit heard local authorities. I'll of course go back to that too now. And then, but it ends with the primary purpose of which is to provide environmental, economic, or social community benefits for its shareholders, all members. As you can see, I always stress all members. You don't need to necessarily be shareholders, or for the local areas where it operates, rather than financial profits. Okay, so at the end of this whole itinerary that we had with not only the university competent governance bodies, but also the wider competent authorities that we had dialogues with about this. One of the elements that really also was a difficulty was the primary purpose and financial profits of it. And I will explain it a little bit more, how this can become an obstacle, how the interpretation of this and pulling it out of its context, and maybe not separating it sufficiently from what is an entity, can be an obstacle. But let's go back to the concept of local authority. Of course, that was the first issue that we had to address when we made this first deliverable that I referred to in December 2021. Right, so we read this. We have just seen it says SMEs or local authorities, including municipalities, can participate. So we would think that a university is a local authority because it's local, it's in a place, and it has authority only in that place, which is its own. And the authority it has is to issue university degrees, for example. Not everybody can issue those degrees. So we understood that it was sufficient to understand it like that. Moreover, looking in the context, the teleological interpretation of the directive. So why would this be included? I mean, municipalities are being explicitly included as an example of local authorities, but it doesn't mean that local authority only refers to municipality. Municipality is an example of local authority. That has been a tremendous discussion. Again, I insist, I do still firmly believe that we can interpret universities as being a local authority, but since this has been an issue, and since if there's a big discussion about it, it can become an obstacle, then now I'll jump to regulatory modifications to facilitate energy communities in an educational context. What would be a recommendation? Would be to include, at best maybe, why not? If you can say including municipalities, you can also say, well, including municipalities and educational institutions. Why not? Or even universities, such as universities, schools, kindergarten, etc. Because precisely, again, referring to the previous intervention, of course, why does it matter for future generations? I think there's in the purpose of these communities, I think they're acting as a vector of change, as a vector for the transition in itself. I think it's key that these entities to be able to participate. To make it even more simple, one other suggestion could be to substitute local authorities for public law bodies, for example. That would be very simple. So, because generally a local authority is a public law body, but not all public law bodies. Maybe if you come up with such a restrictive interpretation as certain stakeholders in the European did, well, then why not just avoid that whole conversation, whether you are an authority or not? I mean, at the end of the day, they impeded us from doing this in the context that we envisage. So I would say they would have to recognize that they had a certain degree of authority, of course, otherwise we'd be doing it now. So there's a bit of a catch-22 there too. Let's continue. Right, the question is also, and that was in the first part of the definition, that it had to be, that the community has to be autonomous. So it means it should not be dominated by one member. That was an issue, because now I'm going to give you a few more details on how we proposed it initially. Well, we suggested that the foundation, so legal entity, a foundation, would be a really good legal form to start this renewable energy community for the UPN. We had an issue there. It was more of a, say, inexperience, political experience nature of the university. They had had some negative experiences with foundations, with endowments that didn't that were not sustainable over time. So they had just been in the process of reducing the amount of proliferations of foundations they had. Then we went to the next option. We said, well, you can be a commission of the existing foundation, because the university was in the process of centralizing all their foundation in one. They're an issue, and now I come again to also purpose and the autonomous character of the renewable energy community. I mean, it means that it has to be autonomous from its members, but there are limits to that. It doesn't mean that it becomes an entirely, say, superpower entity that is totally independent from anything. We argued that it can be perfectly renewable energy community in a university context where it will have clear limitations, and where also university could still have a lot of, say, veto rights. So a lot of boundaries and a lot of limits of the things that this community can do and cannot do, which is very important for a university. Because a university, by definition, also needs to be very autonomous and needs to be independent, because it needs to defend its academic independence, but also as an institution, of course. So we argued that these things were compatible with each other. We think that an entity can still be not dominated by one single member, in the sense that a member can decide whatever the community is going to do. So we said, okay, a community starts and it has bylaws, and those bylaws identify the purpose of the community, and then you can either continue with it or stop it. You cannot change the purpose, and the purpose can be done in such a way that it does not interfere with the other purposes that the university has. Another thing is that this section C of definition number 16 of Article 2 says that the primary purpose of which is a lot of things rather than financial profit. Mentioned it already a little bit. It doesn't mean that the primary purpose also of a legal entity, in my opinion, should only be to be the community. I think it can be an additional activity also of other entities. That is something maybe to be discussed, but to me it recalls a lot what we had in Spain more than 10-15 years ago. We would have a subject of the system, of the electricity system, that was called a gestor de carga. So it was the entity that was going to deliver services to charge electric vehicles. What was the problem with it? It had to be a self-standing entity, which only purpose was to charge vehicles. So that meant that no hotels or whatsoever could have destination charges. So I think also that was abolished logically because it didn't lead anywhere. So I think also that teaches us that when we talk about primary purpose of the renewable energy communities, the key here is that its primary purpose should not be to make financial profits, but the point is not that it cannot also do a lot of other things in this community. I think we should have an open mind also in that sense to the purpose. And then financial profits, as I indicated, that was another of the obstacles. At the end of the itinerary, when we had already, I think, surmounted a lot of obstacles, we've been really creative. So for all the difficulties, all the bears on the road that other stakeholders saw, we came up with alternative solutions and we advanced a lot. And eventually, the protectorate for foundations in Spain was asked about the foundation of the QPM, if this could be done. And the key point here was the way that we financed it, because of course, it's great to do this, and there's of course a lot to say about the focus of all the purpose, etc. But still, somebody has to pay for the party. You need to get money from somebody. You need to finance it. So we argued, well, normally, if you're a foundation and you need to do something, you have a certain capital, so to say, that was your initial endowment. But then you can finance yourself. You can ask a bank, for example, to get a loan, and that is perfectly compatible with the non-profit character of a foundation. So we suggested that all the members could, in a way, lend money to the foundation, to the community. And we did this with a figure which in Spain is cuentas en participación, which is sort of participative accounts. What is the advantage of that? So you put your money to the benefit of this purpose as a member, but you, so to say, not in your quality as member, but just as a way to finance it. And then in return, if it works out, you get some say interest for your money, some payment. But if it doesn't work, you don't see your money back. That's the thing of participative accounts.
Yeah, Pierre, we need to draw to a close. Yeah, Pierre.
Yeah, okay. I was about that was the last obstacle, really. So it was focused on these three elements, right? The local authority has to be autonomous, and the primary purpose of it, financing. Those were obstacles. We think that there may be also a lot of other possible improvements of it, but for me, the takeaway here would be the main proposal to include express recognition of educational institutions as local authorities. So I'm happy to further in the debate in more details. I'll leave it here then.
Yeah, and just to say, Piet, the other thing you had on your slide was that the alternative of working with the university was to work with a local school in the locality. And I think that is now the first school-based energy community in Spain.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I focused very much, of course, on the barriers. That was kind of my role. But yeah, eventually it was done in a school environment, not directly in university environment. And it is now up and running, and it worked in a pretty similar way as we had it disaster originally. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Piet. I'd like to move on, if I may now, and invite Achille Hansrop Achille Hanneset, the Policy and Legal Officer from the European Commission Directorate General Energy, to outline the Commission's thinking on energy communities. And over to the floor is now yours, Achille.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Addressed at DG Energy, so I'll be representing the DG here today, and I will be providing you indeed an overview of the EU policy on energy communities, and I will try to make it as relevant as possible, of course, to the topic at hand, which is, let's say, the engagement of universities in decentralized energy systems. Next slide. So we have models of consumer empowerment in our legislation. Of course, the first and foremost one is within the house itself, you have your solar PV and you self-consume behind the meter. Then you can have a multi-apartment building if you're an apartment owner or tenant. And you can, of course, make use of the internal grid to self-consume the electricity that is produced on top of your roof. And then the third model is outside of the multi-apartment context, which can be in an energy community, as you can see from this nice picture that has a copyright of Rescoop EU, the Federation for Energy Communities, but that can also be a more informal configuration of final customers as we see them, of course, in the energy system, but ultimately they are citizens, small businesses, and also universities. So let's go to the next slide. Energy communities in a clean energy package. So we talk a lot about this concept, but we have legally defined it at EU level. Of course, this is minimum harmonization, so you might find other models at the national level, such as sustainable energy communities in Ireland or local energy communities in Brussels. But these two concepts need to be at minimum translated in a national law. You have the citizen energy communities and the renewable energy communities. The renewable energy communities are very much often in focus of many of these webinars and research projects, and the forgotten brother or sister, the citizen energy communities, is often left out of the spotlight, but nevertheless can provide some interesting opportunities, especially for universities. Next slide, please. So here an overview of business models. Okay, it's not necessarily exhaustive, but it gives you a general idea of how things can go. So members come together. These members can be households, they can be small businesses, and they can be local authorities. And potentially even other actors. I will get back to that. They pull together their capital and they set up a legal entity that then invests into energy efficiency measures, which can also be district heating or collective purchase of heat pumps, for example, or they invest in renewable energy capacity, mostly wind and solar based. We also see biomass at times taking a role here as well. What do they do with this self-generated electricity or heat? Is they can share the electricity between each other, which is basically self-balancing. So within the imbalance settlement period, you can produce and then offtake that electricity, of course, making use of the public grid. You can also sell that electricity through a third party or directly if possible, and you can make profits out of that and then use those profits for social or economic or environmental causes. They can also provide their flexibility on relevant energy markets. They can supply the electricity that they self-produce to their members and other customers. So we do see that the supply model is also adopted by more professional energy communities, usually after obtaining a certain scale and a minimum mass of customers. And then local heat supply, of course, they can engage in this if they are connected to a district heating network, or they might operate or own it themselves. We also see examples of that. And of course, if it's a centralized heat pump, then they can also use the electricity that they generate to convert that to heat. Next slide. So here you see a little bit of the differences. I told you renewable energy community is always in focus, and then the forgotten brother or sister, the citizen energy communities, which in particular here today can bring some clarity, but also added value for the involvement of universities. So the citizen energy communities are in principle technology neutral, so combined heat and power generation is certainly possible. They operate in the electricity market. And any entity may participate. Participation means that you can invest, so universities can invest. Now, of course, the idea is always that these are bottom-up grassroots initiatives that consist mostly out of smaller actors. That's why the effective control, and control is defined also in the Electricity Market Directive, as it pertains to unbundling, but it can be considered also relevant for the interpretation of effective control here, is limited to natural persons, local authorities, and small enterprises. So our services do interpret local authorities as public administrations, part of the government, and small enterprises are also defined in a recommendation by the Commission. Again, this is by no means necessarily binding. Ultimately, the interpretation lies always with the Court of Justice. We are just the first line of interpretation, and enterprises, of course, engage in an economic activity. No decision-making power for large energy companies as a specification. So you can invest, but that doesn't necessarily then translate into actually having a vote as well when decisions are being made. For the renewable energy communities, everything is a little bit more concise, a little bit more strict. It's limited to the local level. Large entities cannot participate. So universities may find difficulties indeed to enter this vehicle if they're not considered an enterprise. They might actually be considered an enterprise, right? Yeah, autonomy is of course required, which is the external and internal dimension. I think Pete did a great job in also explaining that, so I won't go too much in detail there. Of course, all of these concepts need to be translated. And when I say translated, of course, I mean transposed in national level. At the national level, and member states need to further, well, ideally they further define what is meant with these concepts. So the meaning is not necessarily always written in stone, either at EU level. Next slide, please. The enabling framework. So of course, what is the reason why we have conceptualized energy communities in our legislation is to also correlate them with rights and responsibilities. We did that, of course, because they're a social economy actor that consists out of smaller actors that are not necessarily professionals in the energy sector, and therefore can make use of a helping hand to help navigate the market, relevant procedures, and to obtain access to relevant activities. And for that, we have an enabling framework for both the citizen and the renewable energy communities, which is largely defined around principles of proportionality, fairness, transparency, non-discrimination, which again needs to be translated by the member states at national level. So it's open for interpretation and of course needs to take into account the contextual situation within the member state. There's also a set of privileges, as I like to call them, that we gave the renewable energy communities because everything is a little bit more concise and strict. And this might also be one of the reasons why the renewable energy communities are so popular. Tools to facilitate access to information and financing need to be foreseen, and tools, and let me emphasize that not access to financing itself per se, but tools too. Customized support schemes, meaning they have to member states need to take into account the specificities of renewable energy communities when designing new support schemes, and that correlates with the state aid guidelines that provide some flexibility there as well for the member states, so they can exempt them, for example, from bidding procedures, and they can ease the participation requirements, so the financial bid that is required, or the financial security that is required to participate in an auction, for example, could be reduced or even exempt for the energy communities. Then an assessment of the potential, but also the removal of the unjustified barriers, and then regulatory capacity building support to public authorities. So recognizing indeed that public authorities have a role to play in supporting the setup of these entities, providing technical resources, skills, or even financial resources at times to help communities to get off the ground. Next slide, please. Yeah, yes, indeed. One more feature of the citizen energy communities that is not always emphasized as much, but is nevertheless quite important because it's unique to the citizen energy communities, as they are regulated in the electricity market directive and thus strongly embedded in the electricity market design. There is a possibility as well to allow them to operate electricity networks, distribution networks. Now, in any case, member states can always decide to allow certain entities to take up this activity. It depends also very much whether it's open for business, this activity, in terms of concessions or not. But it's enabled for the citizen energy communities, and it's enabled in a way that is quite peculiar or interesting, as it also allows the member states to implement exemptions that are given to closed distribution systems. Now, closed distribution systems are traditionally linked to more industrial areas and cannot be used to supply households. But of course, for the citizen energy communities, consisting also mostly out of households, this is different. So it becomes a closed distribution system, if you like, operated by citizen energy communities that benefit from some similar exemptions. Now, if you go to the next slide, I will take you through those exemptions. Next slide, please. So the applicable rules and exemptions, here you see them. So an exemption from market-based procurement, so they may directly use their own flexibility to cover energy losses and provide non-frequency auxiliary services. A negotiated TPA instead of regulated TPA, which means that they can negotiate the conditions to access the network, which includes the network tariffs. Do keep in mind, of course, if a network user would feel unfairly treated by these network tariffs, they can always ask for a review by the NRAs, the national regulatory authorities as well. And then also exemption from unbundling for operating charging points or storage facilities, which is, these are logical exemptions that you would apply to a small scale closed citizen energy community system. Next slide, please. The Fit for 55 package then, I was talking about the clean energy package, which is really the blueprint of energy communities. But in the meantime, things are still moving. And we have a new target for 2030, greenhouse gas emission reduction of 55%. And of course, we need to bring legislation in line. And by looking at the legislation and bringing it in line with this new target, we also, of course, had an eye for the energy communities, and the co-legislator has also recognized their role in contributing to heat production, the development of heating and cooling networks, even contributing to energy savings and offshore wind. What they benefit from, in addition, is the fast-track permitting conditions that apply to small-scale installations. It's not necessarily tailored to energy communities alone, but it benefits them, of course, operating at a smaller scale. And for the social climate fund regulation, also the potential of energy communities to tackle energy poverty is recognized. And here, of course, we go back to how profits are used, and also the possibility for energy poor households to potentially become a member, a co-investor in installations. Now, of course, you say investment in energy poverty. That sounds like a contradiction, and to some extent that is also the case. But what we see is that some energy communities do lower those entry fees, or they pre-finance them, and then through on-bill financing, they recover them systematically. So these type of practices do exist, and we certainly encourage such noble causes to be also supported as part of the social climate fund, and thus in social climate plans, which will need to be submitted, by the way, in June of 2025 this year. Next slide. So some key Repower EU policy instruments that I want to also highlight for you. So Repower EU was our response really to the energy crisis. unprecedented high and volatile energy prices affected all of us and required immediate action also at EU level. And we have X amount of instruments that are relevant, but one of them I really want to highlight, and that's the EU solar strategy, and where we also include measures for energy communities and to contribute to an ambitious target of an increased capacity of 600 gigawatt by 2030. And one of the shared political objectives there, shared, I mean, by the Commission and the Member States. Political objective, I mean, it's a soft objective, it's an ambition, it's not a target, of one energy community in every municipality with a population higher than 10,000 by 2025. So that's the end of this year. Yeah, we will be at one point most likely taking stock of where we are with this political objective. Next slide, please. Some guidance and recommendations that were also issued in the context of Repower EU, and that also are relevant or contain recommendations that are relevant to energy communities, even directly, and so on the design of auctions, but also on speeding up permit granting procedures. And here indeed you see that this includes production licensing and grid connection permitting. In this regard, I should add, it's not part of my slide deck, is of course that the Commission is in the process of developing a grid package where again we will reflect on how we can simplify and accelerate the integration of renewables. Next slide, please. The electricity market design. So the electricity market design reform, which is the most recent initiative that was completed, and that also stemmed actually from the Repower EU. So the energy crisis and the volatile energy prices also tested the system that we had in place. It tested it in ways that we were not tested before. So that of course exposes some vulnerabilities, and also required us to look into the market design, electricity market design, to see how we can further fine tune it. Now, what was apparent is that those initiatives, including maybe even in particular energy communities that did manage to have their own production capacity, that they could of course connect this electricity directly through energy sharing with their consumers. And in this way, they shielded themselves from that volatility because they were less dependent, not completely independent, but less dependent from the energy markets. So that worked well in terms of stable access to affordable energy, and therefore we also saw the need to further regulate this activity and also enable it for all type of final customers. Now, with all type of final customers, there are some exemptions, but most interestingly, it includes public bodies. And public bodies can be interpreted in the broadest possible sense, and may also provide an avenue for universities to be able to share electricity. Again, this needs to be translated at national level, but the intent is certainly to allow all type of let's say vehicles that have a public character, including, for example, also municipal companies. So for large enterprises, there's also the possibility to share the electricity, but it's under strict conditions, and it is dependent on the member states on whether they allow it or not. So that means up to 6 megawatt of installed capacity per facility and within a local perimeter. Otherwise, there's really not a geographical restriction that is imposed on energy sharing. Again, it's for the member states to decide at which scale they allow this. Now, the interesting thing about energy sharing is that it's essentially a service. It is a service that provides consumers the option or the right to self-consume electricity that is not generated or stored on their premises. So it allows really for those that don't have the space, don't have the finances to invest in solar PV, for example, within their premises, to access directly access this produced electricity generated on other premises. So that's quite promising measure. It will need to be implemented by the 17th of July 2026. In some member states, it's already operational. Some member states, it takes the form of collective self-consumption and needs minor fine-tuning. In others, it's really it needs to be built from the ground up. Most interesting part of this for those who are interested is that most of the innovation that is necessary to operationalize energy sharing relates to data management and moving away basically from this single billing and metering point at the connection point where the supplier is located, but also moving in the direction of sub-metering or accounting points that also allow for registration of this shared electricity at a single connection point. And we will be, of course, guiding the member states there with a guidance that will come out, I think, still this year or early next year. So stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. Other relevant policy documents, I won't go into detail here. Next slide. EU assistance for energy communities. So we are assisting them in engaging in citizen-led renovation. Imagine here mostly one-stop shop functions. So energy communities, they can bring you in contact with trusted contractors. They can take over some of the administrative hassle that comes with building renovations. Maybe they can even do some free audits for you to see where you can best target your renovation or installation efforts. And we're helping also these type of structures to do these activities and to bring local neighborhoods and communities along in the building renovation wave. And then the Citizen Energy Advisory Hub is a new initiative, quite recently set up. It still needs to put up its website and start communicating, but it will have a broad scope. So it will support local communities, citizens, small businesses to self-consume renewable energy and reduce or shift their energy demand. Then the Energy Communities Facility, which is already in operation, fully in operation, let's say, and their first call will open in June 2025. So keep your eyes open for that as well. They will be providing grant support for business plan development for energy communities. Keep in mind, when I say energy communities, it's also the citizen energy communities. So there are certainly potential opportunities here, I think, for universities as well. And then energy communities in Western Balkans is part of the larger enlargement efforts of the EU. Next slide. Then the outlook, next slide, and that's the final one as well that I have for you, is that the Commission will come with a citizens energy package. This was announced in the Affordable Energy Action Plan and aims to increase citizen participation and strengthen the social dimension of the energy unit. It will also most likely include a comprehensive list of actions to further help communities to reach their objectives, and it will be adopted in the fourth quarter of 2025. So it certainly will give another push and momentum to the energy communities, but also wider consumer empowerment and energy sharing initiatives. So with that, I've taken you through the essentials, and I hope you found it useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Achille, for laying out the legislative framework and the forward look intent and the opportunities for us to take up grants and support for energy communities. I'd like now to move, if I can have the next slide, please, to an example of a successful energy community within the university sector. And it will be presented by Zi Zhang, Department of Mechanical and Production Engineering at Aarhus University, Denmark. So Zi, over to you, and apologies if I get the pronunciation wrong, as I regularly do, I know, of your name. So over to you, Zi.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. So yeah, I'll give a very short introduction of the energy community we have built in at Aarhus University with the support of Aurora project, and then talk about some of the challenges and how we dealt with them. So I work at the Aarhus University as a project coordinator for the Aurora project, especially for our demonstration in Denmark, which of course, out of the research, we generated UEF, which is this university energy community, and I'm also a founding member of this community. So who we are, if we can move on to next page, please. Who is UEF? UEF is essentially a solar cooperative founded by 6 people in 2023 in Aarhus. We have currently 120 members that comprising staff and students from the university as well as citizens living nearby. So the idea was members crowdfund 98 kilowatt of rooftop solar installation at the university, and this installation was already in operation since September 2024, so providing clean energy to the university. The framework, as I mentioned, came out as an outcome from the research project Aurora, but I have to point out that UEF and Aurora are 2 separate entities now. If we can move on to next slide, please. The motivation for us for the project is, of course, solar is getting really cheap, but not everyone can be part of it because they probably don't own a house to install their own solar, or they can't afford it. And then we also noticed the European legislation includes energy communities, which was also transposed in the Danish law. So we thought that's a good opportunity for us to try something with this community concept with solar. Let's try to crowdfund a solar system at our university. And with Aurora coming in, we are actually able to do this across different countries. So the cool thing is we can try different models in different universities across European countries. So what I'm sharing here works for Denmark. It does not necessarily work for Spain or Portugal, but we hope this could maybe give you guys some inspiration or idea how it works. Can we move on? Next slide, please. So the timeline of the project in Aarhus, what happened is, so Aurora laid the foundation and tried to explore the framework for how this energy community should be organized in Aarhus for the first 2 years of our work. So from 2022 till 2023, we focused a lot on that until we set up the energy community as a solar cooperative in 2023. Then things start moving towards more on the operational and administrative things for the community. We had a reservation of shares where we asked people to indicate their interest, whether they want to be part of this community. This helps us to gauge the interest and also to estimate how big the installation could be. In early 2024, we observed that we have gathered enough interest from people. That's when we started contacting different contractors to give us offers on how much the solar installation would cost us. With that offer, we eventually confirmed how much a share would cost to the people who previously subscribed or reserved their shares, and then people started buying their shares to pay in full price to get into the community. During this process, we lost some interest due to different reasons, but then there's also new people coming up. So eventually we kept around 120 people. The installation of the systems took place since June 2024 and took some time because of the summer holidays. So we have to work with people who are on holiday, and that took a little bit longer to get the installation done. So till today, we have 28 kilowatt of solar system installed on 2 rooftops. We used 2 different types of solar panels, so 1 for each rooftop. So that's also kind of to help the university community to see the different performance of different technologies and compare them in a real Danish weather. So we used a Delta east-west ballast system, even though the production from it is slightly lower than the south-facing orientation for the solar system. It helps us a lot in the Danish weather to reduce the wind load. So the panels have lower risk of being flown away in bad weather. Next slide, please. So the framework in Aarhus takes a long time to form. So I would like to explain a little bit here. Most Danish universities do not really own their buildings, so they rent either from the state or from a private company. So in our picture, this brings in the new stakeholder in the whole project. The building owner comes in. Another challenge we had is the universities are public entities, so they are subject to university laws that actually prevent them from getting involved in economic activities that differ from the core activity, which is teaching and research. So that basically stopped the possibility of the university to be directly involved in the community as an active paying member or as an active contributing member in that way. What we found is the solution called self-consumption via third party in Danish legal framework. We have to create an independent organization that supplies the electricity to the university. So in our case, UEF was built or set up. So UEF and its members owns the solar installation and supplies the electricity to the university, while we use the rooftop from the building owner. So we have to sign an agreement with the building owner at the same time. This framework allows us to not really compete with other energy suppliers in the market because the university is considered as a consumer via the third party, which is UEF. So this is what I meant. This could be something a bit special for Denmark. And then if we can move on to the next slide, please. We, of course, encountered many other challenges. I try to summarize some of the questions we try to ask ourselves during the process. For example, who can be a member of the community? What is the legal framework? And who are actually making the decisions? What we found out during the process is it takes extremely long for the university to kind of decide or find the right person to make the decision that they want to be part of such an innovative framework, which takes a lot of discussions, meetings, and yeah, good humor. And then there are challenges in terms of organizing the community. We have to develop a sound business case. So for people who want to be part of it, they are not gonna lose their money in a sense. We would need to decide how much one share cost and how do we know if it is affordable to our students. And also we need to decide do we want to limit maximum participation? Can people buy a maximum number of shares or they can just buy as many as possible? Do we want to have one person, one vote, or do we have one person, one share, one vote? And also the most challenging part in the administration process was how do we actually organize the crowdfunding process? In the end, we have to do it a little bit manually because we couldn't find an automatic platform that supports this function. So we had to actually do a ask people to do a bank transfer of their shares and have someone to verify that payment manually and send the confirmation to the members. In addition to those challenges, we also had the challenge even with the choosing the right technical solution. Do we need a building permit to set up the solar installations on the building rooftops? If yes, what are the steps? Do we need to do additional structural capacity analysis? Who do we find to do this? And how do we ensure that this solution is robust for the next 25 years? It's not necessarily the cheapest, but it needs to be robust for the next 25 years for the community. So all of these are our challenges. Some of them can be solved through public discussions with potential members, and then some of them we actually had to get a professional help, like professional engineer to evaluate the structural capacity and lawyers to evaluate the legal framework. That we got some help from Aurora. So we're really thankful for that. In the end, the graph on this page actually shows most of our members, they own between 1 to 5 shares, and we set a maximum number of shares they can own is 50. So doing that, we kind of assured ourselves that we managed to cover students who probably cannot afford to buy more shares in this cooperative. Can we move on to next slide, please? So during the process, I think one challenge is how to keep people informed and engaged. We had a group of interested people following us since the start, even before UEF is set up. That's when we are still trying to test the legal framework. So we had to do a lot of physical meetings and a lot of online engagement activities trying to keep people informed. That we think it really helps to keep the interest and enthusiasm from students and staff who eventually become our members. Next slide, please. Another way to keep our members informed now is actually also with the help from the project Aurora, where we developed a platform where our members could actually see the production online, tailored to the number of shares they own. So they could log in and indicate, I have 5 shares in the installation in Aarhus. This is how much, and then the platform would show them how much energy is produced up to on hourly basis actually. So that's the tool is available online together with the Aurora Energy Tracker. It's not limited to community members, so even general public can just go online and check how much energy is produced from the installation in Aarhus. Next slide, please. Yeah, so of course, one of our biggest motivation is to make this more easy to replicate, not only in Denmark but also probably in other European countries and European universities. So we summarized our 10 challenges in a article, and it's an open access article. You can read it on by scanning this QR code. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is probably my last slide. Through this process, we did realize this kind of initiatives and projects also require some sort of action and changes from the municipal and national level. So we do have this wish list where we try to send around and to different people to discuss. We would like to have the municipality to take more responsibility to have this to develop guidelines to help people to set up energy communities and to provide help, because not all citizens can afford to hire a lawyer like we got the support from Aurora project. We also would like to have the municipality to develop a digital tool or improve the existing tools to automate the organization of the community that is specifically relevant to the crowdfunding process. We would also like that there could be a fast access to building information archives or even more digital information access. This is more relevant to setting up solar installations on older buildings. We would also like the municipality to implement some more educational campaigns. During the process of our project, we realized there's still misinformation and doubt about solar energy, especially whether it makes sense to the Danish weather, for example, since it's cold and dark for a long time of the year. So that really requires some effort from not only the municipality but also environmental organizations and associations to kind of clear the misinformation and clear the doubt. On national level, we are trying to propose some changes for tax regarding the prosumer via third-party arrangement, and also something regarding the electricity market regulation with the negative pricing. We know this would be more difficult to achieve since this requires a bit more take from the politicians, but we hope that we will manage this, and this list is also circulated right now to different people to get opinions and input for how we can get this further. With that, I think I will just conclude my part to introduce the energy community at Aarhus and what kind of challenges we encountered. I would also like to just give thanks to the Aurora project for giving us the support, to the initial support for us to get the legal help, and also thanks our participants and members of the board.
Thank you very much, C, and a really encouraging initiative, with lots of lessons for other universities to learn from what you've been doing. I need to press on, however, and I need to invite Christophe Bartholines to talk about Eco to Schools program. And Christopher, I see you're down in the attendees list rather than in the panelists list, so you've come in on the wrong address. But perhaps, Joanna, you can facilitate and allow Christopher to talk to his slides, please. Is that possible? Can we hear you, Christopher?
I don't know how to do it. Let me check.
I think you can authorize Christopher to speak and remove the
Yeah,
mute.
Christopher, you can now talk, I think.
Yes, you hear me?
You need to speak up, Christopher. You're a little faint.
You hear me?
You will need to speak up.
To speak up.
Yeah.
Yes, but then wait, I will get my headset away.
You're coming through now.
It's okay. You hear me?
Yeah, you're fine now. That's good. Go.
Okay, perfect. So let's introduce myself. So I'm Christophe Bartholines, and I'm project manager of the Erasmus Plus project Eco Schools as European House Lab, which is initiating fast community-driven European House Lab related to the renovation of schools with climate education, linked with the neighborhoods and villages. So taking learning action at 3 generations. And I'm also a project manager for COSI as the first village in Europe to take part to the Net Zero Cities initiative. I'm now in Lisbon, so sorry for the aggregated conditions. I try to find a location to hold this session. So you see a picture of the former military airbase 112 near this village of Courcy, one of the 3 villages around this military airbase, and which will become in the 5-7 next years net zero neighborhoods. So a neighborhood of 2050, where different parts of the Greater France will be co-actor. Can we shift to the next slide? So first, I will introduce you what is the new Open House Lab Eco to Schools. So it is starting from the necessity to reinvent the existing, initiate green schools in neighborhoods, villages, communities, and co-learning action at 3 generations. Next slide. So for understanding where we are and what we have to achieve, and I appreciated that the European Commission underlines that the citizens are actually the main part of the solution and not technology. We all went to school once, and today 1 on 3 families attend the school regularly. This is something that we share widely in Europe. This is central public space in neighborhoods, daily life. In 50 years, it has hardly changed. Parents recognize the classes they have attended 20, 30 years ago. The places with low reinvestment have visibly deteriorated, and we do not know when it will be renovated. But when we talk with our neighbors, we see deep changes: environmental, societal, economic, educative. By 2030, almost 2/3 of the schools, this is the case in France and some parts of Europe, will need a renovation of 1 of 3 are already completed, outdated. So this is tremendous effort to make, and this will not be solved by business as usual renovation technology. And as our good grandmother used to say, she lived 2 World War. School is the place where to start building tomorrow. We have experienced here in Lisbon a blackout. It was 48 hours ago. Everyone has to adapt to the situation. No energy, nothing is driving. We have only humans to solve the question. In our streets, our neighborhood, our village, we see these changes coming. Shared spaces and co-managed makes their return. Mobility will be soft and mutualized. Short food, materials, waste, energy, circuits, and biocanteens are the new standards. By 2030, buildings need to become own energy producers, all buildings. 20 to 30% of the free artificialized spaces, as the schoolyards, different parts of neighborhood streets, could be quickly replanted. At the threshold of the schools, we are 3 generations and we hesitate to make the first steps. Where to start, what to involve, with which method, what resources, and what if school, by its renovation, became a place where we could, with the educative community, the children, youth, professionals, and associations, who learn and be part of the change. I wanted to share with you this story. This was the start of the project with Lille 2020 World Design Competition. Next slide. I will not show all the details of the slides. You will have this after. So this is a representation of the pathway we have to achieve. We know that with the COVID-19, we have not achieved the decrease. We are still rising the emissions and energy consumption in the European Union for now. And we have to achieve a quick decrease. It's -6% each year better. So you keep this in mind. We have to start with changing habits. Next slide. So we have co-designed this question about the renovation of neighborhoods and thinking schools you find everywhere, educative buildings, community buildings as church buildings, university campuses can be a place where the people can feel how to adapt and how to lead community-driven initiatives. Next slide. This is involving a lot of stakeholders. Here you have 2 representations of stakeholders in the Lille Eurometropolis cross-border area of the stakeholders linked to school renovation, to green schools, and the other is about students-driven, student-centered approach. We have to think about not about the complexity inherited of the industrial area, but about users-centered services, support to change, support to take action and to learn and to transmit what is learned between persons. Next slide, please. The 5 bold steps vision, which is a design canvas for design thinking, has brought for the model of EcoSchools European Bus Lab. So we have 5 major themes that are brought together and that are linked with climate education being introduced in all schools in the coming 10 years. It is a decision from United Nations with a green schools model. And this is also what is ongoing with and started with Education for Climate Coalition at European level. So first, a solution for a step-by-step renovation of schools in series. So this is the technical aspects. Multifunctional open to the neighborhood. So how to use the buildings better, how to adapt to new ways of using the buildings. Other configuration for better co-learning. So education will no more be with a white blackboard, interactive board from top-down learning. It is a community-driven learning with linking different competences and talents. A community engaged into the eco-transition. The main thing for a transition is to act as a community, not as individuals. This starts in the school. This is already the case with a lot of schools. Restore a cycle with nature, permaculture. We have to rethink our connection with living and with biodiversity and food and health. So I do not go to the details. You will see this with the slides. Next slide. So is this an unsolved problem, or is this a real opportunity? So by starting from the problem, or rather from the opportunity of educational buildings, the proposal of EcoSchools as New Open Bus Labs is to put our hands into action. Do not wait. Make the things happen. Learn. Dare to test. Take up the challenge of eco-transition. Make a just safe sidestep. Dare to move. Open schooling approach. To produce a systemic change as 3 generations. Do not keep in small groups. Act as a community. Cross-link initiatives, solutions, innovations that will enable to achieve -6% CO2 emissions better each year. This is a change of users, mentality, offers, and habits in a cooperative way. A set of qualitative approaches in continuous improvement, a climate education pedagogy should be introduced in all schools, universities, high schools, and then involve adults. Adults are a major barrier. When you try to involve adults, it is 2 years effort. With a reorganization of new economic model, because we should think about different ways of values, not only money. With a process for testing, learning, consolidating, and upscaling, and interventions have pointed the importance of the public authorities at all levels to facilitate a change, not to block the change. Next slide. This is an image we've taken for the New Open Bars, as we are official partner for New Open Bars. Is a manifest image of Paul Signac, Autant d'Harmonie, in times of harmony. You will have the opportunity after seeing the PowerPoint, but actually the keywords, they correspond to this image. This is 100 years old, and this is our future. We are in a long line of times. We have forgotten that the world where we live was built in millennia, not in 10 years. Next slide. So EcoSchools as New Open Bars Labs is starting from this observation. Schools need a systemic renovation linked to education for climate action. And an invitation. This is positive and this is decentralized. Come with us in following supportive community. Challenge your school to begin learning action. Why is it decentralized? Because we cannot manage the change, so there are plenty of solutions. All solutions exist throughout Europe. There is too high complexity. Let's start a lab that is enabling anyone that is wanting to take part of this, to be part of a change and to facilitate experimentations. Next slide. So we have started with a consortium with a very different complementary pilots. One is in Greece, it's a school with its own research and development centers, about 25 researchers in the schools, with educators being part of the research process, research and development action process related to education. We have Ciencia Viva, which is a network of science centers in Portugal, science farms, and with a science museum in Lisbon, Pavilhão de Conhecimento. We have the University College of Cork. This is a campus. second university in Ireland, and the first in the world to have become green campus within EcoSchool's global initiative. We have in Sigtuna in Sweden the oldest boarding school of Sweden, international school in the suburb of villages of Greater Stockholm near the airport of Arlanda, and it has celebrated its 100 years. And in Courcy, so there's a former military air base where we start the Nico campus. I will show very briefly in the PowerPoints. We start educational third place for climate education by learning action. So those pilots together, they demonstrate how it is possible to build common evolution with different contexts within this new open Bars labs. And by December 2020, the project will be at the end. And we have set up a European association, which is called EcoCampus, to open and have a wider effect of this new open Bars lab. Next slide. We have a chamber of quality that is set up for guiding the process and in the perspective of continuous improvement. We work with communities. They self-manage the projects. They are stimulated to possible evolution of their infrastructure, to better use the existing, to individual and collective changes. I've talked about the pilots. Next slide, please. So this is a holistic methodology. The project aims to demonstrate the green transformation of education and buildings cannot be realized with the implementation of technological solutions solely. It is not to say that technological solutions are not a part of the solution, but rather with a multi-focus approach that combines several factors that are complementary. And the project is organized with a holistic methodology with linking the 5 levels of systemic change around the central issue of co-learning by acting into a desirable transition. This word is very important, desirable transition. You cannot involve community, school community, educators, civil servants, businesses, so inhabitants, in the change, parents, if they do not feel it is desirable as change. Next. So the effect we will want to achieve is to involve plus 150 schools by, let's say, 2026-27 with a network effect. So we have pilot sites becoming hubs with these eco-campus in cross-border situation. Then we have a network of schools that are linked to a local situation. They are supported by local authorities. They are ease in their initiative, and they take experimentation. Some follow the experimentation, others take part to the experimentation, and the territory is offering skill sponsorship to this. Main issue is education. Climate education, worksite school process, and step-by-step improvement of existing facilities. Next slide. So let's take an example with the first eco-campus in Courcy, Microville 112. This is the first demonstrator in Europe of a third place for climate education by learning action and 3 generations. This is positioned in the heart of a renovation of into a sustainable microcity of former military air base on the turf, with existing buildings, existing open spaces, infrastructures, and this is next to village to 5 villages, and where the village of Courcy, where we built a real change in the village with what is happening in this campus, and we are willing to extend this systemic effect to the greater Reims area. Next slide, please. So this is located in France. We have already achieved significant steps with this project. This project was presented in April 2024 by the European Bars Festival. This was presented to the European Commission with the education unit and with to the European Bars community, with quite important success and of interest about the initiative. Since September 2024, Corsi was first village in Europe to be to access and to participate, so to commit in Net Zero Cities initiative, 100 Mission 100 climate neutral and smart cities. Since 4th March of 2025, Corsi has won the national prize EduRenov with worksite school project initiative that we start, and that was recognized nationally as an opportunity for training school young students, young professionals with a real scale renovation, with forward-looking solution of tomorrow, not the solution of yesterday.
Christopher, we need
Yes.
to draw to a conclusion if
Now
we can.
I come to the conclusion.
Yep.
So next slide. So this is the context. So you situate a bit this military airbase with a lot of buildings and spaces. The situation now is more greener than what you see in this picture, because the nature has taken its place again, and we want to preserve this. Next slide. Showing distances with the Greater Almas area, you can access the whole Greater Almas area within 30 minutes with bicycle, electric bicycle. Next slide. We have demonstrated for last years how to co-design in different steps the change with this test eco-campus. So read the place and its potential. We started, for example, with the heating installation and energy installation of the existing building. We will refuel the existing building 100% with renewable energies, and demonstrate with this with a first demonstrator by this author. Share a desirable change story. So we work with the climate fresque connaissance écologique, which is connecting the person with different projects with a holistic vision. And facing to this, we have this in a project room where we set targeted goals and actions that are decided by the community. And we grow the community in the time. So there is transmission, communication, and the initiative are consolidated. So this project room is a major change. We want to make a mobile version of this project room, because the community is the start of everything, and we need also to commit in action the deciders. So public servants are involved, politics, and directors, board of directors, which are not very positive to take part to collective action, but they have to learn to manage the things differently. So this is targeting climate education, energy. We have this worksite school net zero renovation, and we have a major issue in communication. This is inside the community and outside the community for following what is happening. And we do this with all the pilot sites. Next slide, please. So this is an example with few pictures of many persons that were involved, and with an example with a charter of eco-citizenship that was delivered by the School of Design, Sergi École de Design, that participated with the community to the co-design sessions. This is very instructing to see what they have put in this charter. Next slide, please. So Naturally, there are different aspects that are connected to the renovation. You see here the solar canopy we will build next button to demonstrate how we can refuel the first part of the building. And we will have a full renovation of the building in 2026 to 2027 with renewable energies. So there's a solar thermal for heat, cold, and electricity. Next slide, please. With self-storage. So I go beyond the 4 actions. I have already talked about this. Next. So this is this eco-campus building for former educative building, and this will be augmented without really changing big things in the first year in the building. We will not build external insulation. The building is sufficiently insulated, not perfectly at all, but we can cover 100% of the needs of a school very easily with renewable energy. Think beyond electricity. We have here a heat network that was fueled with oil, and we shift this to renewable energy with heat batteries. And we will be able in the coming years to convert heat in cold. So you can temperate the building with existing radiators. You can reduce the energy consumption with changing the lighting system. So Sigtuna has demonstrated this with Signify. And by this, we can very easily go to major self-consumption of electricity. Then think about transport as also storage of electricity. So there are many perspectives beyond re-injecting energy in the network of electricity. So there is citizens' communities about energy. They can work not only with energy providers or operators of the network, of a grid, but are so very complicated to talk with and build many barriers. But we have still, by the hand, a real solution to directly start with real renewable energy self-consumption. Next slide, please.
Yeah, Christopher, we are going to have to wrap.
You will see in the PowerPoint, so just where we start this year with different initiatives, and next is where we will be in 2026 and 2027. So this is a growing initiative. So we are working in a first building that is existing. Then we have a second building that will be a worksite school. So totally renovated. So one is adapting, the other is making this renovated building of the 21st century. And the third is a new build extension with carbon negative construction with bamboos, and that will build real renewable capacity for sharing electricity between this building and the communities of buildings. So I'm finished. Thank you for having for your audience.
Thank you very much, Christopher. If I may move on now, we are losing time rapidly now. So Professor Paula Carroll, Operational Research and Business Analytics, School of Business, University College Dublin. Over to you, Paula, for your final slot.
Thank you, Martin, and I'll be as brief as I can. So the other speakers, so thank you for the opportunity to speak, and to the other speakers for their insightful presentations. They've kind of laid the groundwork, so I can be quite brief. I'm going to talk about 2 projects here today. One is a sustainable energy community, which is an initiative of the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, and the other is a research project called Secoria. Next slide, please. So I'm going to first talk about the research project, and it goes to some of the points that Z, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing, from Arhu's talked about on her wish list at the end. She was talking about tools to support energy communities, and it came up in Achilles' presentation as well, that energy communities, if they're made up of citizens, may not have access to the expertise, so they may need assistance with tools and so on. So this was a European project with partners in Ireland, Latvia, Belgium and France. Next slide, please. It was a Chist era project, and this is what we were setting out to do. So to enable local energy communities, and I'm stressing my definition there because Achilles talked us through the various different types of energy communities that can exist. This project started 2019. The legislation has evolved. The landscape is evolving all the time. The rules are changing, so it's difficult to keep up. This was a Chist era project, so we were focusing on the technology side of things. So you can see there what our main objectives were: developing computational efficient algorithms and high quality weather forecasts. So again, hopefully some use in the team in Aarhus. Next slide, please. So this is, again, as I say, what our focus was. We know what the future grid will look like. So the grid will serve lots of energy purposes. So the electricity grid will be serving our transport and our heat needs as well. So lots of challenges in there. We broke this project down into 5 work packages. So we do have a website. I'm going to speed through very quickly. You can find more information on the website, but they were our main work packages that we broke down into. Next slide, please. So it was a 2019 Chist era call. By the time we got through the funding process, we started up in 2021 when we were still under COVID restrictions, so we couldn't do all the travel we had planned. We have just a quick list here of some of our successes, some of our challenges. Some of the other speakers talked about the lack of willingness. We had the opposite. We had lots of goodwill, lots of interest, but it almost led to too many challenges between too many stakeholders having differing objectives. So we did have engaged stakeholders. HEI stands here for Higher Education Institution. DSO or distribution systems operators, and the research community. And we also had some sustainable energy communities in Ireland who were interested in our project. So we achieved lots of rewarding interdisciplinary collaboration, some capacity building, which is absolutely necessary. We had a lovely presentation from DG Education today. We need those skill sets to be able to complete the clean energy transition. So we delivered on our objectives and our stated deliverables in our project proposal, but we did have significant challenges. So back to the capacity building, recruitment was a very significant challenge. So getting people with the right skills to help us move quickly was a challenge. Access to data was also a challenge, again, echoing what our Aarhus colleague was saying. And one of the big challenges for us was commonality across the different partners. So the legislation in the different jurisdictions is slightly different, and also the maturity level. So across the different countries, the state of the legislation and the state of play of the energy communities is very different. So that was a challenge. Next slide, please. So a quick summary of how we decided to proceed. So we used University College Dublin, which is my university. We have 3 campuses in Ireland, which altogether are over 150 hectares. So we had a lovely presentation about schools. A local school might have a footprint of less than 1 hectare. So you can appreciate the challenge where you have very big energy users, very big university campuses. And we started on the left-hand side here looking at wind as a potential renewable source. Ireland is abundant in wind resources, but for university campuses, they're mainly in urban areas. They wouldn't have the land footprint or get planning permission. So wind really wasn't an option. So then we started looking at what we call reference load profiles. So what is the demand and what can serve that demand? So looking at PV generation to serve the supply. So the middle diagram is showing you one of the university campus buildings during summertime, so at peak sunshine. And that's what the orange line is showing there. So this is a building that has as much PV as it can on the roof. And you can see that the orange line doesn't even meet up to the green line. So the green line is the demand for that building. So even using PV in that building, it's not completely self-sufficient. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the same building in the winter time when the days in Ireland are very short. Our Aarhus colleague also talked about, is PV a useful resource at northerly locations? And it certainly is, but on its own, it's not sufficient. So some pointers there on where we got the data from. So the University Building Energy Management System, and then open source data from the Irish Meteorological Society and from the European Climate Reanalysis Models. So they were our main data sources. And that's our first use case, and we have a couple of publications there. If we can go to the next slide. Our second use case, and it touches on a lot of the points that were raised by the other speakers, we also looked about this at the situation in Latvia. So our partner there are based in Riga Technical University. It's a much smaller campus. Again, it's in an urban area. And their focus, they decided, was to support local energy communities within their geographical area. So we saw from Achilles about apartment buildings. So if you have apartment buildings in Riga, could they form a local energy community? And we looked at the scenarios for that and the obstacles in the way. There are technical challenges around the wiring in the buildings. There are also issues about who can participate. They do allow in the Latvian legislation, if you have a summer house, you can share the electricity with your urban location, but whether you can do that in a community level is not clear. So lots of challenges there. I'm going to skip very fast. So again, I'd be delighted to speak to anybody who wants to hear more about this project. But if we go to the next slide. This is just a quick acknowledgement. We did have significant achievements, but we also had major challenges. One thing for us is that this was a European project, but was funded by the national funding agents of the different partners. So they each had different requirements. So that was one issue for us. You can see the website there, and everybody, you're very welcome to visit the website and contact us about that project. I'm going to go very quickly if we go to the next slide. So my second project I want to talk to you about, and Achille mentioned the Sustainable Energy Community Initiative in Ireland. So these are not licensed energy communities. These are any group of people who can come together and say, we want to learn more about energy and energy sufficiency and so on. So it's an initiative of the SEAI, which is the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. There's over 1,000 of them in Ireland, which is a huge number. We only have about 3 actual citizen energy communities, but we have 1,000 of these sustainable energy communities. Each community can make up its own objectives, decide what they want to achieve, how they want to achieve it, and they connect with other citizen groups such as environmental groups or tidy towns initiatives. The UCD one is made up of the community here are the academics, professional staff, and students. So what we decided to do was to focus, rather than on becoming a licensed energy community, on being one of these sustainable energy community. If you go to our next slide, you can see that our objectives are focused on education and research. So again, it's to do with agency, who has control of what. So we decided to optimize our efforts and focus on supporting research and teaching, which is the remit of the university. So next slide, please. So this is what we do. So Christoph mentioned the green schools. That first activity is a green campus initiative. So UCD is also a green campus member, and we ran an initiative during Green Week this year. We've also hosted workshops with other HEI SECs. We've connected with other government agencies and the research community through a small conference. So that's the nature of our work. Next slide, please. This is the kind of thing. So this is the Green Week Energy Hack. So connecting students with research. We're trying to connect undergraduate students with the postgraduate students and the academics. So we had a poster display, we had an energy event. So we were planning an energy hackathon for the students using the campus data. So that was our Green Campus initiative focusing on education. Next slide, please. We also support students who want to participate in energy hackathon type events. We're delighted that one of our teams won a competition run by EirGrid, which is the transmission systems operator in Ireland. That was a recent piece. I can see I'm very close on time. So next slide, please. This is just to tell you a little bit about the UCD campus. We have renewables, we have heat pumps. We're trying to use that data to enable research, some more a living lab concept, but we're also trying to support the estates team in how they achieve their public sector climate action plans. So again, all the legislation and the directives, the way they feed down, restricts what the university can do. Martin, I know we're out of time, so maybe just flash through the next slide or two, Joanna. These are the types of projects we do. Next slide. And that's a thank you. Okay, Martin, I'll hand back to you because I know we're so close on time.
No, I'm very grateful, Paula, for you for getting through so quickly. We did have 2 sessions planned. Next slide, please. We had an intervention session planned so that we could give members of the audience a chance to speak. Unfortunately, we really are running out of time, and we do have to finish at 2. So what I think I would like to do at this stage is to ask one of our panelists to speak a little bit about the EU Green initiatives at the universities. So if I could invite Carlos Godino to speak a little bit about the EU Green universities as part of the first intervention. Carlos, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. And thank you to all that speak before, because it was quite interesting. So in a brief way, I'm a researcher at University of Évora. We are also partners of the Aurora project, and I'm here on behalf of the EU Green Alliance, which is a European alliance for sustainability. We have 9 partners to Europe, so it's Évora in Portugal, University of Extremadura in Spain, University of Parma in Italy, Angers in France, ATU in Ireland, Gävle in Sweden, Wrocław in Poland, Oradea in Romania, and Magdeburg in Germany. So it's a wide range of European universities that are come together to work during at least 8 years, we hope, and beyond that, on all the dimensions of sustainability. And of course, energy is one of those dimensions. And since we are also part of university is also part of the Aurora project, and we are very committed with that. Of course, we know that willingness to participate, as it was said by Piet, is always a barrier that we need to overcome, and sometimes we need to motivate our rectors to go on that direction. And I think the strength of the alliance, of these kinds of alliance, is that individually or alone, we don't have the strength enough to push forward. But between the 9 universities who have different challenges, of course, but we can promote and we can motivate our rectors to go on that direction. And I also say that it should be two ways to do it. So we need to provide information and accurate information to the rectors that this could be a viable solution. And then we can use the students and the staff of the university to promote that willingness on the boards that make the decisions. So it's a 2 steps, one from the bottom up and another one from up to the bottom. So I think this is how we can eventually do it. And of course, we need to overcome, at least in Portugal, some of the legal issues related with the universities. And if we can or cannot produce our own energy and put it on the network, because it's considered in some of the cases like for profit, which is strange. But we need to find solutions, like I think it was Zen that showed the case, that there are other options. So one that we can do it, we can make pressure to happen, but we need some legal advice on how we can push forward. And I think, Martin, if you need anything else, just let me know.
No, that's fine, Carlos. That's a really good intervention. I'd just like to say we've got a panel of potential, a panel discussion group of Piet Holtrop, Achille Hanneset, Carlos Godino, Christopher Bartholomews, and Paula Carroll. But we are running out of time. So what I propose is that I take 2 or at the most 3 questions from the floor. So if you have a question that you would like to make at this point, then you would can either put it into the Q&A session, but to save time, it's probably easier just to raise your hand. So the first question I want to allow is from Luis Miguel Carrasco from Spain. So Luis, would you like to put your question, please?
Thanks, Martin. So this is Luis Miguel from Technical University of Madrid. And my question is for the general panel. So the electricity market is led by large companies. So how we can encourage universities, schools, or citizens, city communities to be part of this business market?
Okay, so let me help because you were breaking up a little bit then. So that the question for Luis was, in a global energy context with large energy companies leading the market, how can educational centers and citizens in general be convinced to undertake initiatives such as energy communities to be part of this business market? And could I ask Achille whether you would like to respond to that one? You need to unmute if you're still there. Okay, I'm not getting a response. Paula, would you like to have a go at it?
I'll have a quick go. So one way is through the legislation. So when the directives get transposed into the regional legislation, in Ireland, the case is that a university, which is a public sector organisation, have specific obligations. So they have to lead by example, and then they have specific targets around their energy efficiency and their carbon. So I think there has to be a strong link from the policy through to specifying what the role is and the opportunity for citizens to engage with that. It is a huge challenge, but I think one of the instruments that we can use is the legislation and the policy.
Okay, thanks, Paula. Are there any other questions from the audience? Anybody would like to raise their hand? We have one more slot available, I think. I'm not seeing any at the moment, and unless Luis, you can see any of the audience that want to raise a question. In which case, I would like to then invite Monica Bisani from DG Klima to give us the closing address, if you may, Monica, please. And we can bring the slides back up, Joanna.
Thank you very much, Martin, and good afternoon to everyone. So Martin already mentioned that I work at DG Klima. Specifically,
just a
can
second.
You hear me well?
Yeah, so if we go past the panel, there we go. That's what I wanted to see. And then if we could see Monica on screen, I think that's probably the best thing. So Monica, back to you again, sorry.
So great, thanks, Martin. It's good to see many of you here today. And I haven't been part of the whole discussion, but I joined in a little while ago to listen in, and it was interesting to hear the discussion about the challenges that we face in trying to establish an energy community in higher education schools and universities. And I'm sure you've had a good discussion about how to successfully overcome these challenges and sharing good examples of how you've managed. So I'd like to just say a few words to close off today's workshop. I'd like to highlight the importance of initiatives like the Project Aurora for placing the citizen at the heart of the transition from a DG Klima perspective. So, and I also want to take just one step back to put this all into the bigger picture of where we are in terms of climate action in general in the world. So the climate crisis is, of course, a common global challenge. It affects everyone in the corner of our planet. And in order to address the challenge effectively, we really must engage all citizens in the green transition and in the decision-making process. So that's why projects such as Project Aurora is extremely is crucial and so valuable. As you, of course, know, media coverage on climate looks a little bit different these days than it did 5 years ago, and may seem that there are more obstacles than ever. The current geopolitical situation has resulted in an increased focus on other priorities, such as defense and security. There's also pressure on making sure that we stay strong on competitiveness. And however, still, I want to emphasize that climate remains really a priority, regardless of the changing context. And Europe will seek to address these issues without losing focus on the green dimension. We have very clear evidence that decarbonization policies can be a powerful driver of growth when they are well integrated with industrial competition, economic and trade policies. I can just point to some very speaking figures that between 1990 and 2023, the EU's net greenhouse gas emissions decreased by 37%, while its gross GDP grew by 68% during the same period. So it is possible to decarbonize and have sustainable growth at the same time. I'd also like to just say a few words about the Climate Pact and citizen science. So it's great to see such an interest from the EU Climate Pact community in today's event. It's organized by one of our Pact partners, the project Aurora. And for those of you who don't know, the European Climate Pact is a key component of the EU's climate action policy. It was launched together with the Green Deal in 2019. The pact is a movement of people united by a shared mission to build a more sustainable Europe and to help the EU to become climate neutral by 2050. For me, the pact is really the missing piece that we had until 2019. It's the part which really engages people, which tries to get people on board in the climate neutrality transition, because it's not enough that we have the finances, the laws, the regulations, the technology. We also crucially need people on board. And the pact provides fertile ground for initiatives, networks, and movements that have already begun to revolutionize the approach to climate action in Europe. It aims to empower the countless Europeans who are ready to contribute in whatever way they can. And by having the pact, which is a large initiative, we also we try to facilitate allowing people to be able to contribute to something a little bit bigger than what is beyond their own networks or their own communities. 5 years later, after the launch of the pact, it's more important than ever to have people on board to join the cause for collective and dedicated climate action. And the work of Climate Pact partners such as Project Aurora is really critical for supporting the goals of the EU Climate Pact and the Commission's mandate as well, which aims to increase citizens' participation in the energy transition and make climate policies work for citizens on the ground. So the President has really made it a point to also say that the commissioners in this mandate need to be much more present on the ground. And this fits very well also with the work of the pact. And then just to say a few words specifically on the topic today. So communication and feedback on the real life barriers faced by those seeking to implement climate and energy policies on the ground is of course really important to talk about this and to reflect together on how these barriers can be overcome, not just to sort of exchange best practices, but also this is essential information for policymakers, so that this can be conveyed back to the decision makers is really important. And citizen science is a powerful way to turn knowledge into real world climate solutions. We also had this as a key theme at this year's EU Climate Pact annual event, which took place in March, where we had speakers emphasizing the value of citizen-led research, community involvement, and cross-sector collaboration in shaping climate responses that reflect local priorities and perspectives. So it really should be a dialogue and not a top-down communication, but really a dialogue between the local communities and the decision makers. In addition, only last week, the EU Climate Action Academy held also a new webinar exploring how citizen science activities can enhance your climate action. And these webinars are also recorded, so that can be found on the Climate Pact website after if you didn't follow the webinar. Moreover, higher education institutions really have an important role, as you all know, in cooperation with industry and society in conducting research to find solutions to environmental and climate challenges, and in developing climate and environmental literacy for all students across all levels and disciplines. So I can't emphasize this enough. that really higher education institutions can be a role model for environmental sustainability through their infrastructure and operations. So it's not only a sort of breeding ground for new ideas, but also they can become a sort of sustainability establishment, doing it in practice and showing how it can be done in real life. So I really hope that today's workshop has provided a good and constructive platform and a springboard to showcase successful community energy schemes developed for educational establishments, and that you've had a good chance to exchange views and ideas as regards the challenges faced and the solutions that we need. I encourage you to continue the conversation that has been started today, and hope that this will help also in setting up new energy communities. And once again, I'd like to conclude by again congratulating you for Project Aurora, as this type of initiative really help EU citizens and empower them to become agents of change beyond the project itself. Aurora is EU funded by the Horizon 2020 program, which can be also hopefully an inspiration to others who wish to empower citizens to become active in the energy transition. So really appreciate all the work that you do to deliver the climate and energy transition. We rely on people like you on the ground to make it happen in practice. And with those words, I would like to thank you very much for your attention and for your active participation today.
Thank you, Monica, for those kind words. We're now going to wrap up the webinar. Thank you all for taking part. The recording of the webinar will be made available. It will be made available initially on the Aurora website, but we'll also share the webinar recording with the EU Climate Pact and also Educate for Climate, so that others can gain benefit from it. And we'll also take small cuttings from the video and make them available on the social media channels. And lastly, all the slides that have been used today will be also shared through the same routes. And I would urge everyone to think about how we motivate and grow the energy communities in the educational sector, so that the examples that we gave in today's presentation in the schools and the universities can grow. Because the great opportunity for all of us is that if every university across Europe was developing an energy community and installing renewable energy on their buildings and involving their staff, both the teaching staff and the support staff and the students, it would be an inspiration for the communities that surround them. And I certainly know from what I've seen with the school example in Spain, the joy that comes from the community getting involved in developing renewable energy through a community energy scheme is palpable. You can see it. The ability then to modernize and move away from fossil fuels with the renewable energy schemes that are installed. And in the summer in Spain, to keep the buildings cool in the heat of the Madrid summer with energy air source heat pumps as a direct consequence is a big win. So thanks everyone for taking part. Much appreciated. Thank you to all the speakers who've taken part. Thank you for your inputs and for your time and effort in making this webinar possible. And at that point, I'll declare the webinar closed. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks for having us.